Was a woman's silence ever truly consent? The rain hammered against the stained glass windows of Amesbury Abbey, each drop a tiny, insistent drumbeat mirroring the frantic rhythm of Guinevere's heart. She hadn't sought solitude, hadn't craved the gray stone and the scent of damp earth. But Launcelot, that incandescent, agonizingly perfect knight, had simply left. Not with a flourish, not with a declaration of impossible love, but with a quiet, devastating absence. And she, Queen of Camelot, stripped of her kingdom, her purpose, her very self, realized with a chilling clarity that she couldn't have a knight. Not one who would chase her across battlefields, not one who would fight for her honor, not one who would protect her. It wasn't a grand, defiant rejection. It was a slow, agonizing acceptance of her own limitations, a surrender to the unbearable weight of expectation. The court, the crown, the endless parade of suitors, they were all gilded cages, weren't they? And she, Guinevere, had always been a bird trapped within, her wings clipped by duty, her song muted by propriety. Launcelot, in his reckless, glorious way, had briefly shown her the possibility of flight, only to snatch it away again. The monks, bless their simple, steadfast souls, welcomed her with a quiet dignity. Brother Thomas, a man with eyes that held the wisdom of centuries, simply offered her a rough-spun cloak and a corner of the scriptorium. Penance, he murmured, his voice a low rumble, is a heavy burden but a necessary one, and so she began. Hours spent copying illuminated manuscripts, the scratch of the quill a counterpoint to the storm raging outside. Days melted into weeks, weeks into months, each one a deliberate act of subtraction of titles, of power, of the dizzying illusion of control. But it wasn't just her penance, it was Launcelot's too. You see, the narrative as it twisted and turned through the annals of Arthurian legend wasn't about a woman's rescue, it was about his rescue. The relentless pursuit, the impossible oaths, the constant threat of capture, all of it was fueled by his unwavering devotion to a queen who, in his eyes, was perpetually on the brink of disaster. He'd become a whirlwind of steel and chivalry, a force of nature determined to shield her from the darkness. And when she chose to step away from that darkness to embrace the quiet, the solitary, he was left adrift, a magnificent ship without a harbor. Imagine the frustration, the quiet fury simmering beneath the surface of that stoic knight. He'd spent his life honing his skills, perfecting his combat, dedicating himself to the defense of women. And suddenly his entire existence was rendered obsolete. His purpose, his very identity, hinged on his ability to protect her, and she had simply refused to be protected. The monks, observing this quiet drama, began to weave their own interpretations into the tapestry of her life. They spoke of the inner and utterly outside, a phrase that echoed through the abbey walls. Guinevere, they suggested, was a paradox, a woman who existed simultaneously within the dangerous world of courtly intrigue and beyond it, a damsel in distress perpetually poised to be rescued, yet also possessing the unsettling power to summon chaos with a single glance. Think about the imagery. The damsel in distress, a cliché worn thin by centuries of storytelling. But then there's the enchantress, a figure of potent, untamed magic, capable of both devastating beauty and terrifying destruction. Isolde, Queen of Ridderch, wasn't just a beautiful woman, she was a sorceress, a manipulator of fate, a force to be reckoned with. And Guinevere, in her quiet solitude, began to embody that darker, more complex archetype. It wasn't a conscious decision, not at first. It was a gradual shift, a shedding of layers of expectation and obligation. She started to notice the subtle shifts in the abbey's ecosystem, the way the light filtered through the stained glass, the intricate patterns of the moss on the stone walls, the quiet conversations of the monks. She began to find solace in the rhythm of her work, in the tangible act of creating something beautiful and enduring, and Launcelot, he followed, of course. Not with fanfare or pleas, but with a quiet, persistent presence. He'd appear at the abbey gates, a solitary figure silhouetted against the gray sky, a silent testament to his unwavering devotion. He wouldn't try to force his way in, wouldn't demand her attention, he simply watched. A silent sentinel, guarding a fortress she no longer needed him to defend. The narrative, as Mallory painstakingly constructed it, became a relentless competition, a contest of virtue, a battle of wills. Men judged each other by their ability to uphold the ideal of protecting women, and women, in turn, provided the measure of male achievement. A queen's beauty, her virtue, her very existence, was a benchmark against which a knight's worth was assessed. But what happens when the queen refuses to be measured? What happens when she chooses the path of penance, the embrace of solitude, the deliberate rejection of rescue? The repeated images of the damsel and the enchantress weren't merely decorative, they were fundamental to the story's underlying tension. Queens like Guinevere and Isolde occupied a precarious middle ground, constantly threatening to slip into one extreme or the other. A queen could be a damsel, vulnerable and in need of protection, but she could also possess the dangerous allure of the enchantress, capable of wielding magic and manipulating events. Consider the consequences. The relentless pursuit, the desperate battles, the constant threat of violence, all of it stemmed from the belief that women needed to be rescued. But what if a woman didn't want to be rescued? What if she actively rejected the notion of male protection, choosing instead to forge her own path, to define her own destiny? The very act of rape, of violent seizure, became a symbol of this fundamental betrayal. It wasn't just a physical assault, it was a violation of a woman's autonomy, a denial of her right to self-determination. And the failure to control desire, the inability to prevent the unlawful seizure of women, ultimately led to the downfall of the realm. But the story wasn't simply about the failure of control. It was also about the power of virginity, the mystical significance of a woman's unblemished state. The tale of the Sangreal, with its emphasis on purity and chastity, underscored this belief. Rape then wasn't just a crime, it was a corruption, a defilement that could never be truly undone. And yet, even in Chaucer's work, there's a subtle undercurrent of skepticism. His portrayal of rape is far more nuanced than that of Mallory's. He doesn't simply condemn it as an act of monstrous evil, he explores its complexities, its psychological dimensions, its social consequences. He gives voice to the silenced, allowing the women themselves to express their pain, their anger, their despair. Think about the tale of Philomela, a woman brutally violated and silenced. Chaucer doesn't offer a simplistic moral lesson, he doesn't portray her as a passive victim. Instead, he depicts her as a survivor, a woman who, despite her trauma, refuses to be broken. She weaves a tapestry of vengeance, a song of defiance, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. Chaucer's women aren't simply objects of desire or instruments of fate. They are individuals with their own thoughts, their own desires, their own agency. They may be vulnerable, they may be betrayed, but they are never entirely powerless. Did a woman's silence truly mean consent? Chaucer seemed to ask, through his diverse cast of female characters. Was the act of choosing solitude, of rejecting the demands of a patriarchal society, an act of empowerment, or simply another form of submission? The answer perhaps lies not in a single definitive judgment, but in the recognition of the multifaceted nature of female experience. A woman could be both a damsel in distress and an enchantress, a victim and a survivor, a prisoner and a rebel. And it was in acknowledging this complexity, in refusing to reduce women to simplistic stereotypes, that Chaucer's work achieved its enduring power. Was there ever a truly safe place for a woman in the world of Arthurian legend? The rain continued to fall, washing over the ancient stones of Amesbury Abbey, a constant reminder that even in the most secluded corners of the world, the shadows of the past could never be fully banished. And you? Do you believe a woman can truly escape the echoes of her past, or is she forever destined to be haunted by the specter of violation, the memory of a stolen innocence?